Imagine for a moment waking up to a world where the sacred act of questioning has died. A world so loud, so fast, so saturated with weaponized information that the human mind, once a precision instrument for inquiry and discernment, has atrophied into a vessel of passive consumption. Consider what becomes of a society when critical thought is no longer a virtue, but a deviation. When reason and reflection are replaced by tribal echo chambers where conviction is loud and curiosity is silent. In this exploration, we will dissect the unnerving disappearance of critical thinking and expose the rise of a phenomenon some philosophers now call collective stupidity, a societal condition where masses of people unconsciously adopt shallow thinking, surrender their intellectual sovereignty, and accept narratives fed to them without a flicker of resistance. And by the end of this journey, we will uncover a truth so urgent, it could determine whether we reclaim our minds or lose them entirely to a system engineered to keep us comfortably numb. A quick but important note: the ideas we are about to explore are designed to challenge you. If you believe that truth is worth seeking and that thinking is a non-negotiable act of freedom, then support this mission. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like to signal your agreement, and share this with anyone who still dares to think. Let us begin with a truth that is both simple and profoundly uncomfortable. Thinking is hard, and our modern world is designed to make it obsolete. The entire architecture of our environment no longer rewards deep contemplation. It rewards speed, emotional reaction, and above all, conformity. And this is not an accident. From the algorithms that build a comfortable prison around your existing beliefs, to education systems that prioritize regurgitation over genuine exploration, we are being actively conditioned away from the rigorous work of thought. The philosopher Noam Chomsky prophetically warned of this decades ago. In his Dissections of Media, he explained how power relies on the manufacturing of consent. In other words, a population trained to consume without questioning is a population that is easy to manage, and even easier to deceive. Critical thinking, once the cornerstone of a free society, is now treated as an inconvenience. It disrupts the outrage machine. It slows down the frantic pace of online debate. It interrogates sacred ideologies. It has the audacity to ask, but is this really true? In a world pathologically obsessed with being right, the simple act of asking that question has become a revolutionary and dangerous act. But how did we get here? The roots of this crisis run deep. A key driver is the perpetual cognitive bombardment we call information overload. According to neuroscientist Daniel Levitin, the average person today is forced to process 5 times more information daily than just a generation ago. We are inundated by a relentless tsunami of notifications, headlines, opinions, and advertisements from the moment we wake. Our minds were not built for this. When the brain is overwhelmed, it doesn't rise to the occasion. It defaults to its primitive survival software, cognitive shortcuts, tribal allegiance, and mental heuristics. Instead of painstakingly evaluating an idea, it scans for social proof, cues from peers, influencers, or perceived authorities to know what to believe. Have you ever seen a post with thousands of likes and automatically assumed it must be important? That wasn't your reason speaking. That was a psychological shortcut, a mechanism that explains why collective stupidity can spread like a virus, not because people are unintelligent, but because their minds are being trained to follow signals instead of seeking truth. Another devastating factor is the death of deep reading. Neuroscientist Marianne Wolf has documented how our constant interaction with digital media is literally rewiring our brains. We are becoming a species of skimmers, jumping between tabs, our attention spans fractured into a million tiny pieces. And here is the fatal catch. Critical thinking is neurologically dependent on sustained attention. You cannot analyze, reflect, or connect complex ideas if you cannot focus. Ask yourself, when was the last time you read an entire article without glancing at your phone? Or paused to truly think after hearing something provocative, rather than instantly reacting? These small disciplines, once the bedrock of an intellectual life, are vanishing. The great Carl Sagan saw this coming. He warned, "We live in a society exquisitely dependent on science and technology, in which hardly anyone knows anything about science and technology." His fear was not just ignorance, but the erosion of our ability to think critically about the very systems that govern our lives. In a world drowning in hot takes and ideological warfare, the greatest rebellion is the quiet, disciplined act of thinking clearly. But the problem isn't just technological, it's emotional. The process of critical thinking is profoundly uncomfortable. It forces us to confront the vertigo of uncertainty, to admit we don't know everything. It wages war on our egos. It plunges us into the disorienting state of cognitive dissonance, where our most cherished beliefs collide with inconvenient evidence. And in a culture that worships certainty and confidence, admitting "I might be wrong" is seen as a sign of weakness. So instead of thinking, we defend. We retreat into our digital tribes. We recite our mantras. We cancel, we block, we avoid. We have replaced the honest, painful, and enlightening process of Socratic dialogue with the sterile act of memorizing slogans. What we are witnessing is not just a decline in a skill, it is a cultural shift toward willful mental laziness. And the consequences are catastrophic. Because when a people stop thinking, they stop questioning. And when they stop questioning, they become hollow vessels, ready to be filled with propaganda, with fear, with whatever the algorithm serves up next. And so we must ask the most important question of all. Who exactly benefits when an entire population no longer thinks for itself? Stay with me, because next, we will uncover just how deliberately these forces are woven into our lives, and why reclaiming your mind is not just a personal project, but a profound moral duty. To truly grasp the roots of this collective decline, we must pull back the curtain on the systems themselves, and trace how they have been engineered not to liberate the mind, but to domesticate it. Let us begin with the architecture of modern education. John Taylor Gatto, a decorated teacher turned fierce critic, argued that our school system was never intended to create independent thinkers. He stated bluntly, "Schools don't really teach anything except how to obey orders." Gatto's research claimed that compulsory schooling was a product of the industrial age, meticulously designed not to enlighten, but to produce a compliant workforce for factory life, predictable, obedient, and non-disruptive. Consider the profound implication of this. We are not taught how to think. We are taught what to think. From our earliest years, success is measured not by the originality of our questions, but by the precision of our regurgitation. Conformity is incentivized. Unbridled curiosity is treated as a classroom inefficiency. The lesson etched into our minds over years is clear. Follow the blueprint, color inside the lines, and do not ask questions that challenge the design itself. This pattern of conditioning does not end with graduation. It metastasizes into adult life. In the corporate world, in the media landscape, even within our social circles, we learn a brutal lesson. Challenging the consensus has a price. The fear of social exile, of being branded as difficult, negative, or controversial, is a powerful sedative, often strong enough to silence our most urgent inner doubts. And so we fall silent. But this silence, over time, calcifies into complicity. The psychologist Eric Fromm diagnosed this phenomenon in his seminal work, Escape from Freedom. He explained that many people secretly crave to surrender their intellectual freedom, because true freedom is shackled to responsibility, and responsibility is a terrifying weight. To think for yourself means you can no longer take refuge in the crowd or blame others for your own ignorance. You must stand alone in the wilderness of uncertainty. For many, that is a burden too great to bear. And so, we choose the comfortable cage. We choose distraction over depth and simplicity over complexity. And in doing so, we become exquisitely easy to control. Social media has accelerated this devolution to an unimaginable degree. What was born with the promise of global connection has mutated into a digital coliseum of opinion wars, manufactured outrage cycles, and masterful algorithmic manipulation. Every platform is a finely tuned behavioral modification engine, designed not for reflection, but for reaction. You are algorithmically herded into echo chambers that reinforce your biases. You are emotionally provoked into instant angry responses. The entire system rewards engagement, not truth. It profits from division, not understanding. And in the center of this digital hurricane, the quiet voice of reason is utterly drowned out. Thoughtfulness now appears weak, slow, and hopelessly irrelevant. Why reflect when a reaction is faster and generates more likes? The philosopher Marshall McLuhan prophetically warned of this in the 1960s. His famous maxim, "The medium is the message," means that the way we consume information fundamentally changes how our brains think. Today's mediums, the endless scroll, the 15-second video, the 280-character hot take, are neurologically conditioning us for speed over depth, outrage over nuance, and arrogant certainty over intellectual humility. Truth itself has been warped. In the age of viral misinformation, objective truth has become less important than shareable truth. People no longer weigh the merit of an idea, they weigh its popularity. This is the tyranny of the majority in its most insidious form, not political but cognitive. A form of mob rule where thinking is outsourced to the crowd. So where do we go from here? We begin by learning to ask better questions. Questions that are acts of rebellion. Questions that challenge the status quo and demand authentic answers, not prepackaged slogans. What are you being conditioned to believe? Who profits from that belief? What unexamined assumptions lie beneath your certainty? How often do you seek out an opposing view not to defeat it, but to truly understand it? These are not easy questions. They are necessary ones. Because the antidote to collective stupidity is not simply more intelligence. It is a virtue far more rare: courage. The courage to be wrong. The courage to say, "I don't know." The courage to begin the arduous journey of knowing anyway. Socrates, the original martyr for critical thought, famously declared, "The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing." This wasn't false modesty. It was a sacred invitation to remain perpetually curious, to keep questioning, and to stay intellectually humble before a vast and mysterious universe. And yet, today humility is seen as weakness. Arrogance is mistaken for intelligence. Everyone has an opinion, but few have understanding. In the carnival of noise that is our modern world, the true thinkers are often quiet. They know that wisdom is not found in the shouting, but in the silence that follows, in deep, patient engagement with complexity. And this is precisely why they are so often ignored. In a culture that worships speed and spectacle, the slow, deliberate process of thinking doesn't stand a chance. But it must not be surrendered, because the moment you abdicate your responsibility to think for yourself, you are no longer free. You become a puppet, your strings pulled by forces you do not even perceive. And let us be clear, those forces are not abstract. They are the economic and political systems that profit from your mindless consumption and your predictable emotional reactions. But when you reclaim your mind, the entire game changes. You become harder to manipulate. You begin to see the architecture of the illusion. You cease being a passive consumer of ideas and become an active seeker of truth. And in that act, however small, you light a fire that has burned through history in the souls of every philosopher, scientist, and revolutionary who refused to stop thinking. The question now is, will you do the same? Stay with me, because in our next chapter, we will enter the battlefield of the mind itself. You will discover the psychological traps that cause even the most intelligent people to fall, and how your own brain can be tricked into choosing comfort over truth. We are not done. The most important revelation is still to come. To truly understand the rise of collective stupidity, we must now explore the architecture of the mind itself. Because despite our vanity about logic, the human brain is, and always has been, a deeply emotional organ, not a rational one. We tell ourselves we make decisions based on facts, but the reality is far more primal. In his groundbreaking work, Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman revealed that our brains operate on two distinct systems. A fast system that is ancient, automatic, and emotional, and a slow system that is modern, analytical, and requires immense effort. The fast system is our default operator. It jumps to conclusions to conserve energy. The slow system is our higher mind, but it is lazy and must be consciously activated. And herein lies the crisis. Our high-speed, always-on world has trapped us in permanent, fast mode. There is no time and less will to slow down. So we default to mental shortcuts that feel right but are dangerously wrong. This is the fertile soil where mass manipulation grows. The architects of our modern world, the politicians, the marketers, the media platforms, understand this flaw in our cognitive hardware better than we do. They have mastered the art of exploiting our mental shortcuts. They package complex issues into simplistic, emotionally charged binaries. They use loaded language to bypass our rational defenses. They bombard us with repeated narratives until they feel familiar, and our brain mistakes familiarity for truth. And the most dangerous trap is what happens next. Once we accept a belief, our brain's primary function is no longer to question it, but to defend it. This is confirmation bias, a ghost in our mental machinery that filters reality, causing us to seek out evidence that supports our belief and to ignore or discredit anything that challenges it. Be honest. When did you last actively seek out an intelligent argument that devastates your most cherished belief? If you are like most, the answer is rarely, if ever. This isn't a personal failing. It is human nature. But in a world designed to exploit it, it is a critical vulnerability. Then there is the second ghost in the machine, groupthink. This is the psychological force that compels us to seek harmony over truth, to silence our own doubts for the comfort of consensus. As social psychologist Irving Janis discovered, even groups of highly intelligent, well-intentioned people can make catastrophic decisions when they suppress dissent to maintain unity. Why? Because the human brain is wired for social survival. Challenging the tribe feels viscerally unsafe. To go against the grain requires more than just intelligence. It demands a rare combination of integrity and raw courage. And yet, look at history. All progress, scientific and moral, has been ignited by the few who dared to think differently. Galileo, Darwin, Nietzsche, Martin Luther King, they were all heretics of their time, rejected and attacked by the collective ignorance they challenged. But they thought anyway. They spoke anyway. And their willingness to be ostracized for the sake of truth is the reason our world moved forward. But make no mistake, this rebellion has a cost. To think critically in a society that punishes doubt is a revolutionary act. You risk being misunderstood, isolated, even hated. But you also gain something that cannot be bought. The quiet, unshakable power that comes from knowing your thoughts are your own. Let's bring this home. Why do so many of us feel so lost and unfulfilled, despite having more information than any generation in history? The answer lies not in what we have, but in what we have lost. The sacred habit of inner dialogue. The ability to sit with a single question, to explore its depths, and to allow truth to emerge from the stillness of reflection. We have outsourced our thinking, to Google, to the media, to the mob. But no algorithm can give you wisdom. No trending topic can replace your intuition. And no mass movement can substitute for the profound certainty of a single, well-examined belief. So what can we do? We begin by cultivating a new kind of awareness, a practice the ancients knew well, metacognition. Thinking about your thinking. Constantly asking yourself, what is influencing my opinion right now? Am I emotionally attached to this belief? Am I truly open to being wrong? Another form of this mental martial art is dialectical thinking, the ability to hold two opposing ideas in your mind at the same time without collapsing into a simple answer. This is not just intellectual flexibility, it is mental strength. It is the training that allows you to move beyond the primitive us versus them and into the realm of true understanding. The philosopher Jiddu Krishnamurti said, "To understand the immeasurable, the mind must be extraordinarily quiet, still. That stillness is where the seeds of wisdom grow." But let's be plain, critical thinking is not a hack or a trick. It is a discipline. It demands deep reading, not just skimming headlines. It demands deep listening, especially to those you disagree with. It demands the humility to accept uncertainty as a companion on your journey. And above all, it demands the ruthless rejection of intellectual laziness. If an idea feels too simple, it is almost certainly a lie. If everyone around you believes something without question, that is your signal to pause and investigate. In an age where ignorance is loud and confidence is mistaken for competence, thinking deeply is not just a personal virtue, it is a profound public service. Because the future of our world depends not on the volume of our opinions, but on the quality of our thought. And the most powerful revolution begins with a single person who chooses to think clearly in a world that does not. We have journeyed through the external systems and the inner battlefield. Now we arrive at the heart of the crisis itself. We will now reveal the final, most important truth, the core reason why critical thinking is vanishing, and what you must do not only to resist this tide, but to become a source of light for others. What you are about to hear has the power to change how you see your mind, your world, and your role within it. Beneath the digital noise and the cultural polarization, there is a truth far more insidious. The real reason critical thinking is dying is not that people are incapable of it. It is that they are terrified of what it will reveal. To think critically is to take a hammer to the foundations of your own psychological safety. It is to risk the three things that give most people their sense of self: their identity, their beliefs, and their tribe. And for many, these are idols too sacred to question. We live in an age where identity has become the new religion. People have fused their sense of self with their opinions, their affiliations, their ideologies. To challenge an idea is therefore perceived as a direct assault on their very being. But this is the great illusion that suffocates thought, the belief that we are our ideas. You are not your political party. You are not your dogma. You are not your social group. You are a conscious being with an infinite capacity to evolve. And that sacred journey of evolution begins at the precise moment you decouple your sense of worth from your current set of beliefs. Here is the ultimate truth. Critical thinking is not merely an intellectual skill. It is a spiritual discipline. It is the profound act of choosing truth over comfort, growth over certainty, and inner freedom over social approval. It is the quiet, daily decision to live with your eyes wide open, even when the light burns. Because when you truly begin to think, you begin to see the architecture of the illusion all around you, the systems of manipulation, the algorithms of control, the carefully constructed masks that people wear. And yes, seeing this can be overwhelming, can be painful, but it is real. And that reality, no matter how uncomfortable, is the only ground upon which true freedom can ever be built. As the philosopher-psychologist Carl Jung said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. And yet, this is the very essence of true thinking. It is not about questioning the world out there, it is about the courage to question the world in here. It is the relentless interrogation of the self. Why do I believe what I believe? From where did this idea truly originate? What part of me is terrified to let it go? When you dare to ask these questions, a new world opens up, not a world of mere knowledge, but of profound wisdom. And wisdom is the currency our society is starving for. In a culture addicted to simple answers, wisdom offers deeper questions. In a system built on noise, wisdom cultivates silence. In an era of mass conformity, wisdom has the courage to be free. This is your invitation. Not just to think, but to fully awaken. To stop being a product of your environment, and to start becoming the architect of your own mind. Because no institution, no platform, and no guru will do this for you. The responsibility is and has always been yours alone. And when you accept this responsibility, something extraordinary occurs. You begin to see the world with a piercing clarity. You feel what it is to live in alignment with your truth. Not borrowed truth, not popular truth, but your own hard-won, battle-tested truth. You begin to recognize the subtle frequencies of manipulation. You see the vast chasm between education and indoctrination, between genuine connection and social performance. And most importantly, you begin to lead, not with the noise of ego, but with the quiet gravity of depth. You become a light in a darkened room, a voice of calm in a hurricane of outrage, a grounded thinker in a world of frantic reactionaries. This is what the world is crying out for. Not more loud voices, not more clever arguments, but deeper minds. Minds willing to sit in the uncomfortable silence of complexity. Minds brave enough to say, I don't know, but I am willing to find out. Minds that are no longer playing the game of winning debates, but have begun the sacred work of understanding reality. If you want to change the world, you must begin by changing the way you think. Not because it is easy, but because it is right. The rise of collective stupidity is not the cause of our problems. It is a symptom of fear, of fatigue, of a world too distracted to look within. But every single act of clear thinking is a rebellion against that tide. Every moment you choose to reflect instead of react, every question you ask instead of assume, every time you choose clarity over comfort, you reclaim a piece of your sovereign soul. So as we end this journey, remember this. The most revolutionary act you can perform in the modern world is not to shout, not to conform, not to repeat. It is simply to think. Let the others sleepwalk through their slogans and screens. Let them trade their freedom for the fleeting validation of the tribe. But not you. You are awake now. And once you have truly awakened, you can never go back. If this message resonated in your soul, share it, not because it is trendy, but because it is necessary. Leave a comment with your reflections, because critical thinking does not grow in isolation. It grows in dialogue. And if you are still here, know that you are not alone. There is a quiet revolution underway. A movement not of noise, but of minds. Not of outrage, but of awareness. And it begins every time a single person chooses to ask the harder question. Let that person be you. Stay curious, stay awake, and above all, keep thinking.